Welcome to Spooky Joe's Horror Apocalypse. How's it going? Bit of a change of location today. It's windy and my haunted shack tends to creak and moan like an old boat. So I thought I'd bring it to my house. So welcome to my house, which is also haunted. Nothing to call the Warrens out about, but I have the bead brush incident, which I spoke about in the previous video where my bead brush vanished and ended up on the windowsill outside. But also pans move by themselves. Just do that. Like the handle moves slightly. So nothing amazing, but still fairly weird. Anyway, I'm going to be talking about Lucio Fulci's City of the Living Dead today. The first in the loosely connected Gates of Hell trilogy, which includes, obviously, City of the Living Dead, The Beyond, and The House by the Cemetery. In honour of Lucio Fulci and Italian horror in general, I'm drinking an Italian beer today. How's that pronounced? Birra Moretti. Birra Moretti. You always have to do that. I don't know why, but when you speak in Italian, you have to do that. It's like some weird law of reality. I tried to learn Italian once. I was doing okay until it came to the Italian conversation, and then I just couldn't do it. It was way too fast. Anyway, this is a bit of a legendary movie for me, only in the sense that I knew of it when I was tiny. I didn't see it until my maybe mid-teens, but my horror-loving dad told me about the scene with the girl throwing up her guts, and that stuck with me. That was like, beyond anything I'd ever seen in a Hammer or Amicus movie. But eventually I found out what it was, and I managed to get hold of maybe mid-90s, the Vipco VHS, which I did used to have, but it went mouldy in a damp flat I used to live in. But I now have the Arrow Blu-ray version of it, which is right there, and I have the Vipco DVD. I have another version somewhere, but it's like a cheapo discount version, and the screen is so dark you can't see what's actually going on. But yeah, the plot of the film revolves around the suicide of a priest, Father Thomas, whose death opens the gates of hell in the town of Dunwich. We don't get any background in Father Thomas. I mean, was he always evil? Or was he just to decide one day he was going to kill himself and he accidentally opened the gates of hell? I mean, could that be a thing? Do priests often open the gates of hell when they commit suicide? But either way, it all seems to hinge on the fact that the town's built on Salem, and the town's descendants, the townsfolk are descendants of the people, the witch hunters of Salem. In the opening scene, we see the graveyard of Dunwich, and we see that gravestone that says, I'm just going to look at my notes for this bit, "The soul that pines for eternity shall outspan death. You dweller of the twilight void, the twilight volve, the twilight void, come Dunwich," which is quite strange, isn't it? It's quite vague. It never really explains what link that grave has, other than being a bit strange. I mean, there's a interesting graveyard near me, and there's a gravestone there. It's called the Devil's Table, which is an old table grave. And the legend is, if you dance around it 3 times, the devil appears and takes you to hell. Which sounds ridiculous, but then I always think, what if I do it for a bit of a laugh and the devil appears and takes me to hell? What would you say? You couldn't say to the devil, "Oh, I didn't mean it," because you were told. So yeah, if that's anywhere near you, don't do it, just in case. These clips have been edited together because my laptop doesn't like taking like full 15-minute plus folders or files. Really, I should have come back on in a different outfit, maybe like dressed like Mickey Mouse, and it's not said anything. Suddenly I'd be Mickey Mouse, and then maybe, I don't know, like Bugs Bunny or something, but I didn't this time. Maybe next time. But yeah, the resulting, the suicide of Father Thomas results in a psychic called Mary Whitehouse. Not the Mary Whitehouse, but not the one from the Video Nasty fame in the early 80s UK, but a Mary Whitehouse played by Catriona MacColl, who went on to star in the other 2 movies, in the loosely connected Gates of Hell trilogy, The Beyond and House by the Cemetery, but also Hawk the Slayer. Well, I'd love to be in Hawk the Slayer. But yeah, the resulting, she's connected somehow to Father Thomas, and when he kills himself, the resulting psychic feedback and the psychic feedback from the Gates of Hell blasting open result in Mary having a terror-induced death-like state. I guess she's catatonic, but everybody around her assumes she's dead. So she's dead for the moment anyway. Then we cut back to Dunwich and we see the character known as Bob. Bob's a bit of an odd character. I mean, he's painted as a bit of an oddball, but does he deserve it? All the town of Dunwich hate him, apart from Emily. But does he deserve that hate? He doesn't do anything, as far as we see in the movie, that would warrant the hatred, other than being linked to a mum who was fairly promiscuous. That's what we learn later in the film. They mention Anne Harris. He took Anne Harris into the woods at one point. But then we see Anne Harris later in the movie, and she's fine with him. So I can only assume it's all unwarranted hatred, the poor bloke. But anyway, this point, we're going to see him go into a house. Is that house his old family home, I wonder? It could be, because we guess his mum is dead. I don't know where his dad is. But we see him go into what appears to be an empty house, and he's going to have a good time with his inflatable pal, Luscious Lucinda, the lucky man. But yeah, and she self-inflates. I mean, I've had no experience with love dolls, honestly. But do they do that? I can only assume you have to inflate it yourself. But Luscious Lucinda, he throws her, and she inflates. I mean, is that supernatural? Did hell itself inflate Bob's love doll? Maybe the priest did. The priest, through his powers, his hellspawn powers, inflated Bob's love doll. Just give him do him a bit of a favour. But either way, we don't get to see Bob consummate his friendship with Luscious Lucinda, thankfully. But we then see a dead baby, a baby covered in worms and all sorts of nastiness. And for years, I've pondered that baby. I wondered what it was there. But on this viewing, for this video, I was thinking maybe the baby represents the rebirth of Father Thomas. Maybe rebirth is the wrong word. Maybe it's been born into the realms of hell, born into the ranks of the undead. And that's what the baby represents. The next scene, we're back in New York, where we meet Peter Bell, who's an investigative reporter, I think for the New York Times or New York Express, something New York anyway. But he's played by Christopher George, who appears in a ton of Italian horror movies. I actually own most of them on the shelves behind me, accidentally. I'm not a massive Christopher George fan or anything, but as good as he is. But he was in Pieces, Mortuary, Graduation Day, and Grizzly, amongst others. He also appears in a lot of TV work, and he was in a lot of westerns. I'm pretty sure he starred with John Wayne a few times. I mean, you don't get much bigger than that. But he's an investigative reporter in this movie, investigating the happening of Mary Whitehouse dying mid-seance. But this leads to probably the most famous scene, or one of the many famous scenes in City of the Living Dead, with Mary waking up in her coffin. And have you noticed how shallow the graves are? I mean, I don't know what the laws are in Italy, but in the UK, you must be at least 6 foot deep. And this is barely a foot. It's like very poor grave diggers. And also reading porn mags. The guy's reading a porn mag before he's going to bury poor Mary Whitehouse. But I guess thank God, because he doesn't bury her. And we hear her screaming, which is heard by Peter Bell. And he runs to the coffin. He picks up a pickaxe. I mean, why would you do this? If you hear someone screaming in a coffin, you wouldn't instantly think that pickaxe would be a fine tool to smack into the head of the coffin where the woman's head is. But either way, he uses a pickaxe, which is for dramatic effect. I know it's for the movie. And he smashes a hole into the coffin. I mean, the effects in that scene are fairly amazing. The pick of the pickaxe comes so close to Catriona McCall's head. I mean, how was that done? I mean, I've watched the various commentaries, and she mentioned she hated that scene, and she did say there was a safety device. But was the safety device her head? Like, if it went too deep, her head may have stopped the pick, and all would have been fine, apart from her head, obviously. But that is an excellent scene. Amazing effects. In the previous scene, we've met the rest of the main characters, apart from John, but we get to John. We meet Jerry, the local Dunwich therapist, who's he's working with Sandra, who's sat on his couch when Emily, which I assume is his girlfriend, but he also seems very close to Sandra. So I don't know, but either way, he's a lucky man. They're both lovely ladies, especially Sandra. But yeah, Emily comes in and she tells him she's spending the evening with Bob. And he doesn't seem to mind so much. I mean, I would worry if that was my wife. I would be concerned. I mean, even if I saw Bob in a good light, he still has his reputation. And he still, as we know, he still has fun times with an inflatable doll. I mean, that's not the ways of a normal, well-adjusted man. But either way, she's going to spend the evening with him because she feels sorry for him. What are they going to be doing? Is she going to hold his hand and, I don't know, give him a hug? But yeah, she does goodbyes and she leaves. And then we see Sandra, the cat. She's holding a kitten. The cat attacks her. It's obviously the evil in Dunwich is causing all sorts of crazy shenanigans going on. But then we see Emily. She's gone to meet Bob he seems to live in a garage. He has a bed with like porn mags sellotaped on the wall. Absolute luxury. But he's laid on his bed and he's mortified by what he's seen. And then Father Thomas appears and he smears Emily's face with, I guess it's mud, wormy mud. He smears her face and that's how she dies. And then it cuts, which links into the scene I mentioned previously, the vomit scene. We see a young couple about to engage in what young couples do engage in, and Father Thomas appears, and he looks at the young girl and makes her vomit her own guts. I mean, this scene, I know it cuts to a mannequin of the young girl's head, but the start of it is the young girl with a mouth full of laminids, which can't have been nice. I hope she was paid a good amount. I bet she wasn't. But yeah, because she vomits her guts up, and I assume she's dead. No one's going to come back from that, unless they have extra guts. I don't know. Does anybody have extra guts? But I'm assuming she doesn't, and she must die. And then Father Thomas kills her boyfriend. He kills him in the way he seems to kill a lot of his victims. He crushes the back of his skull, so the guy's brains plop out, which can't be pleasant. The next scene, we see Lucio Fulci himself playing the role of a pathologist, uncredited as far as I know, but they're at the murder scene of poor Emily, who was laid on the floor covered in wormy splurge, and they're all blaming Bob. They all assume, which I guess anybody would do. I mean, she's gone to see Bob and she turns out dead, so they're all blaming Bob, and they think rightly so. And then we get to see the funeral home, where we first see the lovely corpse of the old lady, Jane Holden, who we learn she's died of fright. And then we see Emily's corpse. And I have to say, who's doing the makeup? I know we see the guy, but he's not very good. I mean, if he wants to make them look like corpses, he's doing an excellent job. I mean, they look terrible. It's a horror film, but if that was, God forbid, if that was my daughter, I would say maybe redo the makeup there. It's like it's not great. But yeah, we see Emily's family come into the funeral home, obviously crying as you would, and we meet the oddly named John, which is her younger brother. He's obviously weeping, and during all these events, we learn that if the Father Thomas isn't stopped until All Saints Day, the gates of hell will remain open. And you assume that maybe it's going to spread from Dunwich. So the horrors are going to spread out across the country, from New England as it is in the film, and will infect the entire world eventually. So let's hope they close those gates. We then see Sandra painting, and she's painting. It looks like a rhinoceros's head above a seascape. I mean, who wouldn't want that? I mean, I would love that on the wall right now. That would be in pride of place in my house. I'd have to even have like a light above it, displaying that fine piece of art. Who doesn't love a rhino's head above a seascape? I know I do. But she's in a house on her own, and there's something going on. And she calls Jerry, and she says there's something going on. And he turns up only to find the corpse of Jane Holden laid on her kitchen floor. And so we can only assume Jane climbed out of a coffin from the funeral home, came to Sandra's house. Maybe she enjoyed her artwork, but either way, she came to Sandra's house to cause mayhem. And you hear Jane thrashing around in the house, knocking things over. Let's hope she doesn't damage that beautiful artwork. I can't abide that thought. But either way, she's smashing the house. And also, while this is going on, John is visited by his dead sister. I mean, that kid is a great actor. Despite the bizarre character name, he comes across as genuinely terrified when he sees his sister, who goes on to murder his parents. She doesn't kill John. I wonder why. I mean, you can only assume that that's no longer Emily. She's being possessed by the evil spirits of Father Thomas. But either way, John is left. He's not murdered. And then we see this going on. And then we see Bob. He's walking around town looking for somewhere to hide. And he hides in the house. And it's Anne Ross, not Anne Harris, as I said earlier. I don't know where Anne Harris comes from. I actually know an Anne Harris in real life, and she wasn't in the film. But it's Anne Ross. But he hides in the house of Anne Ross's family, which probably isn't very wise, considering he has a history with Anne Ross. We don't know what. But like I said before, Anne Ross finds him in her father's car, and she's fine with him. So it can't have been anything major. It must have been very innocent. Or maybe she went along with him because she wanted to. Maybe she likes Bob. But then Anne's dad appears, and that's it for Bob. He doesn't know what's going on, but he drills a hole in Bob's head anyway. It's like, I guess that's what you do. You know, you find a strange man in your garage, or, I mean, in this case, he knows Bob, but he thinks he's strange. So he drills a hole in his head. He gives him he trepans him for free, but it kills Bob. Now all the main characters meet up, and we get to see the maggot wind. They're all in, I think it's Jerry's office, isn't it? And maggots start flying through the window, which is a bit of a shock, you know, I imagine. Anyway, this goes on. They rescue John, and Emily's zombie kills Sandra by the old, tested method of crushing the back of her head, and her brain falls out. This then leads to the finale of the movie, with the remaining 4 characters finding the tomb of Father Thomas and going down to find out what's going on, because he assumed that's his base of operations. But before they can really do anything, Sandra zombie appears and kills poor Peter Bell by the same again, crushes the back of his head. This then leads into the final scene where we see the amazing set with we see a necropolis, and we see skeletons hanging down from the ceiling, which I assume are the buried people above in the cemetery somehow may have dug out this necropolis and they're left hanging from the ceiling. And we see zombies appearing, and then I see Father Thomas. And even though we discovered it's already All Saints Day, it's obviously not too late, because Jerry picks up a wooden cross and stabs Father Thomas in the dick, and this kills him. Well, I'm sure it'd probably kill me too. But why does being stabbed in the dick by a wooden cross kill Father Thomas? But it does. It definitely kills him. He bursts into flames, and all the zombies burst into flames too. So if you're ever confronted by an evil demonic priest, stab him in the dick with a wooden cross, and that'll surely dispatch him. So that's one thing we can take away from the movie. This then leads to the bizarre final scene, where we see Mary and Jerry, they're the only survivors. They leave the necropolis and they climb out in the cemetery, where they see John, who was being looked after by the police. I should have said the police are given the task of looking after John, and John sees Mary and Jerry and runs towards them. But then that's the weird thing. You see the camera zooms in onto John's face. We hear Mary screaming, and then you get this weird effect, and then the film finishes. Which I remember the very first time I saw the movie, I thought my DVD was maybe dodgy. But no, that's the ending. And it turns out, if you believe Internet Movie Database, one possibility is the original ending had coffee spilled on the film, which destroyed it. So what we have is the I guess the tacked together version that Lucio Fulci gave us, which makes no sense. I would rather have seen it end on like a happy note, but no, we get this bizarre ending, and that's it. The film's done. It finishes. So yeah, thanks for watching. And before I go, I want to say a big thank you to Mr. Sterling at the Atomic Snack Bar for giving me a shout out. If you're a fan of classic sci-fi and monster movies, definitely check out the Atomic Snack Bar, one of my favourite channels on YouTube, and has been for a time now. And that's it, so thanks very much for watching. If you wouldn't mind liking, and if you like what you see, subscribe, and I'll be back shortly with another video, hopefully. Thanks very much. I'll see you later. I'm momentarily back. I forgot to review the movie. I didn't give my my rating, which I didn't do in the last video either. So I've come back. If you've not seen City of the Living Dead, definitely check it out if you're a horror fan. I mean, if you're into chick flicks, maybe not, but horror fans should love City of the Living Dead. As bizarre and strange as moments of it are, it's definitely a film you need to see at least once. I mean, in this video, I must have seen it about 7 or 8 times just to get this review done. And before then, maybe 100 times plus. I've watched it many times, and I love it every time I see it. So yeah, definitely check out City of the Living Dead by Lucio Fulci. And then check out The Beyond and House by the Cemetery. And any other Lucio Fulci movies you can get hold of too. I mean, I have most of his movies, I think. There's a few I haven't got, but yeah, I've got most. So definitely check out any Lucio Fulci movies you can get hold of. And I'll see you again next video. Have a good one.